Welcome back to Colbert on Golf, and coming up next week, it's the United States Open near Seattle at Chambers Bay. First time there, and we're going to get a great look at a newer great golf course in the United States they're going to play the U.S. Open on. And qualifying was this week, Jim, and a lot of folks qualify for the U.S. Open. It's amazing how many qualifying spots there are, not only nationwide, but they had qualifiers in England and Japan as well. Of note, Robert Streb from Kansas State, who lives in the Kansas City area now, finished Monday night in a 5-man playoff right until dark and got the last spot in Columbus, Ohio, and will be in the U.S. Open. Camilo Villegas, Bo Van Pelt, Retief Goosen, Luke Donald, Lee Janzen all had to qualify to get in. Some pretty big names, but it's worth skipping the Memorial or other tournaments to try to qualify for the U.S. Open. Big names will do that, won't they?
Yes, we will. And there's a formula for qualifying and not qualifying. And, I had to qualify quite a few times, I guess. A lot of times I was just already in, but it doesn't look like they're taking quite as good a care of the tour on the PGA Tour when a guy like Robert Streb, who's won this year, top 10 or 12 in the FedEx Cup, on this year's earnings and not even in the tournament. Something's amiss there. They've wrapped everything around the top 50, which is the world rankings, which includes a lot more of the foreign players, many of which don't even play over here at all, maybe the Masters and the Open. I don't know. It seems like the U.S., I think we'll negotiate getting a few more of our players in the U.S. Open. But it is a great tournament. That's the one tournament that I always wanted to win. That was the number one for me, and then the Masters would be two. But it's unbelievable. This Chambers Bay, I've talked to some of the guys that have seen it. They said, boy, you better look out. If it gets windy up there, there's no telling what the scores these guys are going to shoot. It's supposed to be pretty hard. The green structure is pretty difficult. The driving area is sufficient, kind of a little bit wide for a U.S. Open. But after that, they say, look out. So I don't know how they got the tournament up there. I don't have a clue. But it should be exciting to watch for the fans. I'm not sure the players are going to think it's great.
Well, there's a lot of Microsoft and Silicon Valley money around Seattle. I'm guessing I know how they got the U.S. Open near Seattle, but we won't get into that. There's a great story around Lee Janzen, who's won the U.S. Open twice, and he plays on the Champions Tour now. He qualified this week in New York, and he had a 10-year exemption after he won his second U.S. Open in '98, so it's been several years now that he's tried to qualify to be in the U.S. Open and has not been able to do it. 2 years ago, while trying to qualify, he was playing at a club that did not allow metal spikes. It was soft spikes only, and he had metal spikes on and was disqualified, which just seems crazy to me. But he has qualified this year and will be at Chambers Bay next week. He's playing in the Champions Major this week, the Senior Players in Boston, then the U.S. Open, then the Senior U.S. Open. It'll be 3 majors in a row for Lee Janzen after having to go out and qualify this weekend to make it in the U.S. Open. That is going to be a really tough month for Lee Janzen.
No question about it. I mean, the metal spikes is ridiculous. When the PGA Tour, when you play at the golf course, the PGA Tour rules apply, and they allow steel spikes. So I'm sure he never gave it a thought. And that's the guys in the gray slacks and blue blazers that enforce that kind of rule, which is nonsense. But you talk about how hard that is. Marsh's brother, Jim Hess, caddied for me, and he started in Charlotte, and that was one of the weeks where I had to play, qualify for the U.S. Open. And so we played a practice round on Tuesday at the golf course, 18 holes, and then went and played a practice round at one of the 2 courses we had to play. So that was 36 holes. The next day I played in the Pro-Am, and then we went and played the other course, so that was 36 holes. Then we played through the tournament on Sunday, got up at 5 o'clock Monday morning, played 36 holes. I was in a playoff. It's dark when we finish. We get to the hotel. We bought a pizza on the way home. We're up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We're on an airplane at 7:30. We go to Philadelphia, and by noon we're walking down the first hole in Philadelphia at the White Marsh Country Club.
Wow.
And Marsh's brother's thinking, what the hell did I get into?
But you do it, don't you? I mean, you got to go get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolute grind. Well, there's another good story in qualifying. Sam Saunders, who, if I'm not mistaken, is Arnold Palmer's grandson. He qualified with a low score in Columbus, where Streb qualified. And apparently his game wasn't in great shape, or he didn't feel real good about it, so he borrowed his caddy's clubs and was actually the low score for the qualifier with his caddy's clubs. Only in U.S. Opening qualifying can something like that happen, I guess.
Yeah, I wonder if they had a marshal out there and see if the caddy hit any of the shots, But it is a crazy game. Kevin, you play it. You love the game. I mean, it is. You got to be really good physically to play at those kind of levels up there. But it's still the mental gymnastics and with Tiger. I mean, I think the mental gymnastics now are worse than the physical. So he's got a tough road back. Looks like to me. I'm finally thinking I don't know if he'd do it.
Yeah. Well, it should be a great U.S. Open next week, and we shall see. Time for another break. We come back. How much for a cup of lemonade at Muirfield Village last week? You won't believe what Phil Mickelson paid. We'll do that next on Colbert on Golf.
You're listening to Colbert on Golf, built by Midland Exteriors. Online at MidlandExteriors.com. Midland Exteriors. We've thought of everything.